Hi, my name is Adam Shoemaker, and I'm rector here at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in downtown Charleston, back for another edition of Rector's Corner. And I'm very happy to have with me today Melanie Atha, who is the executive director of the Episcopal Peace Fellowship, or EPF. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us. And Melanie, my first question is just to talk generally, what is EPF and what is its mission?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. It's a true joy to be with the people of St. Stephen's and with you, Adam, this morning. Episcopal Peace Fellowship is a nonprofit which is not of the Episcopal Church. It is of the Episcopal Church, but not in the Episcopal Church. And by that, I mean we are a separate and freestanding nonprofit. We're sustained by our membership, and we're not a department within the church like Episcopal Migration Ministries or the Episcopal Public Policy Network or something like that. We're a separate nonprofit born over 80 years ago, and I'll speak to that in just a couple minutes. But our mission is to inspire and empower baptized Christians to live into our baptismal promises to strive for justice and peace among all people, and to respect the dignity of every human being. We promise to do this work with God's help when we are baptized or confirmed. And with God's help frequently comes in the form of other human beings. EPF intends to be that part of help that is provided by God through other persons. We are here to help Episcopalians do the work of becoming peacemakers by bringing justice. You've heard it said, no justice, no peace, N-O justice, N-O peace, and no justice, K-N-O-W, justice, and K-N-O-W, no peace. We basically help one another live into the promise that we have made at our baptism to bring the kingdom of heaven by recognizing the dignity of our brothers and sisters by working for justice, which will, of course, result in all of God's creation living in peace.
That is such an important mission, given all that is going on in the world. We're recording this interview just days before the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks on our country, and all that that day has led to. Not least of which has been the war in Afghanistan that we just pulled out of. There's just such a need for justice, peace, and reconciliation in the world. I think about the Holy Land. There's a lot of work in the world and in our own communities to work for peace. And the church should obviously be very much at the center of that. You alluded to a little bit of the history. I mean, could you tell us a little bit about what gave birth to EPF?
Yes, and interesting that you mentioned, war and division as examples in our modern times of violence. We were founded by a bishop, Bishop Paul Jones, whose feast day was just a few days ago on September the 4th, and John Nevin Sayre, among others, who were pacifists. They were members of the Fellowship of Reconciliation back at the turn of the century. And they founded EPF really at the advent of the Second World War as a way to nurture and support young Episcopalian men who were conscientiously objecting to being conscripted into violent service during that time. We think of conscientious objectors in our time as attached frequently to the Vietnam War, but think about a young person objecting to violent conscription at the advent of the Second World War, when really everyone was sort of riled up to go out and to defend our country. We have a book, The History of the Episcopal Peace Fellowship, A Loud and Unusual Noise, that captures deeply the history of our 80-year-old institution. But being birthed as a pacifist organization focused against the war and in support of peaceful people, from that beginning, we have really focused on peace and nonviolence in all manner of things that appear in the world. think of the things born out of violence. We advocate in favor of doing something about gun violence to prevent gun violence. We support immigrants and refugees from whatever violence and destruction, whether it be climate or political persecution around the country, around the world. We still advocate against war and weapons of all sorts, including drones. We advocate in favor of abolishing the death penalty and in favor of criminal justice reform. We advocate in support of racial justice, including reparations. We advocate in support of rights of our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and in support of environmental justice, which of course is violence against all of God's humanity. More recently, in addition to the advocacy around these issues of violence and destruction, we have begun to be very intentional about helping our members live as peace builders. Earlier this summer, we started a once a month online seminar, which we're calling our Peace Building Online Project. And we offer an hour on the first Sunday of every month at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, which is an introduction to the various ways faith traditions support individuals in becoming people of peace. We believe that by giving people the tools to become deeply rooted in nonviolence and peace building, they'll become stronger advocates in their justice work. After all, striving for justice is hard work, and sometimes we can feel hopeless doing that work. And what we all need is the sustenance and inspiration to continue to wage peace in these very challenging times. So that's a snippet about how we were born and how our work has been evolving.
And various congregations throughout the church can become part of the Episcopal Peace Fellowship, a chapter of the Episcopal Peace Fellowship, and that's something that we're beginning to discern here at St. Stephen's. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what that means. What does it mean for a congregation to become a chapter of the Episcopal Peace Fellowship?
Yes, thank you for that question. And I'm delighted to know that St. Stephen's is doing that discernment, and it truly should be a congregational discernment. The truth of the matter is there are really 3 ways that people can connect to EPF. And the first is people can join as individuals. You can imagine that there are people in far-flung and remote places that might be the only ones in their congregation that are deeply motivated to do justice work, and they can join as an individual member of EPF. And then we have peace partner parishes, such as what St. Stephen's is thinking on, where the whole parish joins. And moving to the next level, a chapter can be a community. For example, Nashville and Tucson have 4 or 5 different churches with individual members who have joined together to create a chapter for those cities to attach to EPF. And then there are some dioceses that have joined as a chapter of EPF. Maine is an example of a rather large state and diocese that has come together to create a chapter. So what does that mean? It means different things depending on where one is located. For example, I mentioned death penalty abolition. That is something that might be of interest to people in South Carolina or Alabama, where I'm from. But it's not necessary in states like Michigan or Massachusetts. So the chapter would discern the issues of justice that are vital to their congregation and pick 2 or 3 of those to focus on. I'll just mention Trinity in Cleveland, Ohio as an example. They focus on death penalty abolition, on human trafficking, and on the war in Syria. So knowing that the issues can be tailored to the community in which a parish or chapter finds itself, the members come together and do things like offer film series on the issues that are vital to their work, book studies. They might have demonstrations where they actually go out with signs and appear in front of City Hall or go to their state legislature on various issues that matter to that chapter. frequently organizing letter writing campaigns to public officials on certain issues, making phone banks to get the word out about issues, and even something as very specific as sponsoring an immigrant family. We've got chapters in Illinois that have sponsored families from Syria, and I know now that with the interest in the refugees from Afghanistan, there will be chapters in parishes around the country that are sponsoring people who are looking for safe harbor here in our country. So basically the chapter comes together around those issues and finds a way to inspire and support members of their own congregations to do this work, to show our love to others as God loves us.
And is there sort of regular communication with EPF's offices or EPF staff throughout the year?
Yes, well, and actually this brings an interesting point that my work as sort of the traveling director of EPF means that I can be with our chapters and parishes in an incarnate way, virtually, of course, for sure. But my husband and I have been traveling for EPF since Epiphany of 2019. If you can see where I'm sitting, I'm in a recreational vehicle. This is our home. We have been in a different church every Sunday since Epiphany of 2019, going from chapter to chapter, parish to parish, diocese to diocese, being with people to talk about EPF, to support our chapters and parishes, and to plant new parishes and chapters around the country. But I'm but one person, and I can't be in every church every month. So what we have started doing earlier this year is the fourth Friday of every month, we have a chapter support Zoom call where people from all over the country get together. We try to have programming, so that you can sort of pick the meetings that you attend. But mostly it's a chance for the chapter in San Diego to get together with the chapter in Charleston or the chapter in Chicago and share ideas and resources and ask their questions of EPF National for ways that we can do this work. So it's both and. There's an opportunity for in-person visits and virtual visits, as well as regularly scheduled support for our chapters to answer their questions and to give them resources and connections across the church to do our gospel work.
Wow, that's wonderful. And how many chapters do you have across the country at present?
Well, chapters and peace partner parishes, we're in the neighborhood of 80 and growing. This an initiative that we started that I'll talk about in a minute has created great interest in our work. I mentioned that we were doing that peace building series once a month, where we're sharing information about how other traditions create peace in individuals. Virtually every month now, we get new interest in joining EPF. And as you know, and as the people of St. Stephen's understand, it is a discernment. And so it's not an immediate thing when people become interested in our work. They sort of want to do the self-reflection that this sort of work invites. And so I'm happy to say that we do have parishes, peace partner parishes in almost every corner of the country, for sure. We don't have anything international as yet, but that would come, of course, because the Episcopal Church is across the globe and not just here in the United States. So yes, we have quite a lot, and we have members, individual members in virtually every single state in the Union. And so it's not too hard for folks in a state like yours to find connection in neighboring communities and in neighboring states to work on issues that you share in common. But certainly, if you look across the church writ large, whatever issues you all might find that you want to focus on, there's going to be another chapter or another parish that is similarly dedicated and that will be happy to share their resources and learning and tools for effective advocacy with you.
I assume you guys have a website and a social media presence for those who want to to learn more?
Absolutely. We're on Facebook, which is our most active social media platform, but our website is www.epfnational.org.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. And I assume if people want to make monetary donations as individuals, they're able to do that through the website?
Yes, we have a give button and we have a join button. And so people who want to join us as individuals, and there might be some within your parish that want to support our work individually, either of those links will get you to a place where you can give money virtually through the internet. We mostly, as far as support, it's not just the financial support. We welcome your prayers very much so for this work, because it's vital. And as I mentioned when we started, it's with God's help, and inviting God into the work of justice is as vital as anything else we do. Participating in the things that we do, looking at what we're doing on social media, signing up for our newsletter, which you can do on the website. And I encourage, we send a weekly publication that shares what's happening across the country with EPF and with our partners in justice work. And highlighting, where we've been on this pilgrimage that my husband and I are taking. And I'll just mention that we're going to be in South Carolina as winter comes on. Because we live in an RV, we chase the weather, and I won't invite myself to you. You and I can have a conversation about that offline.
Sure.
But if I'm in the neighborhood, I'd love to join you for worship. And if you all are having something that looks like a coffee hour or an adult Christian forum, I would love to be there and to bring some of our resources and to be with you all in an intentional way to share our work in person, if we can find a time that works with your schedule, and if COVID doesn't come along and shut us down one more time.
I know it's such a upending time, and that's usually a question I ask people in these interviews. How has COVID impacted EPF's work?
That's a great question, and I think I have two answers to it. The first is that the pandemic has made our work more vital than ever.
Mm-hmm.
With COVID, the violence in our culture, let's just take income inequality, which is a unique and pernicious form of violence, has become worse than ever. People on the margins suffer so deeply by reason of discrimination based on race, ethnicity, and gender. And that is manifest in our healthcare system, in our poor housing, and pitiful wages. All the things that low wealth people and certain people of color are deprived of because of our systemic racism in this country. Our work is to give dignity to the marginalized, the other, with whom Jesus stood. And this work is so right and so necessary now, and it takes all of us working together to get it done. As well, who really could have imagined that the divisions in our country as a people would have become more pronounced as a result of the politicization of this COVID pandemic? What in other times might have united us has caused the deep divisions between us really to be as bad as they have ever been. And working to help our EPF members become people of peace, who can be firmly rooted in principles, in their principles and faith, so that they can stand their sacred ground on gospel issues, while at the same time keeping an open heart to their brothers and sisters who might view things very differently from themselves. We do this with prayer and offering resources such as the Peace Building series I mentioned, and giving connection to people across the church who want to help heal our society. So that's one, that COVID has affected us, making our work as important for all of those reasons that I just mentioned. But the second way that COVID has affected our work, we have found this odd side benefit. Everyone has learned how to worship online. The virtual world, over the Zoom world, has given organizations and organizers like us an unexpected boost. We can do our programming across the nation to gather like-minded Christians for learning on key issues. For example, we just had an hour-long seminar on the doctrine of discovery on our monthly chapter support call just last month. We can offer our peace partners and individual members every single month some sort of programming to organize and inspire folks through this technology that so many of us have become comfortable using just here in the last months and by reason of the pandemic. So all of this connection and resource sharing is really easy to be done virtually. Chapters that were spread out over like an entire diocese, go back to Maine again, it's a really big state, a really big diocese. They're finding it easier to have chapter meetings since they don't have to travel miles and miles to get together to do their work. They're just using the internet. So I say that to say this is an unexpected silver lining, is that all of us learning that we've done about technology is a nice counterbalance to the woe and the devastation of this plague.
Absolutely. I mean, the Zoom technology that we've all gotten used to and other medium that's connecting people has in many respects helped bring people together in some ways and allowed work to happen across great distance much easier than before. I've been to Maine many times, and I can imagine in the wintertime it'll be a lot easier now for people to make meetings and remain connected up there without having to get out in the snow.
Yep, exactly.
Well, Melanie, thank you so very much for making the time. And for those who are listening in, if you're curious about our ongoing discernment around becoming an EPF chapter, you can reach out to our new standing mission committee that is currently chaired by our Associate Rector, Laura Rizak, and our Deacon, Greg Smith. Our 9 o'clock family service outdoors under the tent is actually focusing on the theme of peacemaking this month as we move towards the International Day of Peace on September 21st. And we are thinking about putting a peace pole in the garden just outside our soon to be renovated Christian education classroom. So there's a lot going on, and please do check our newsletter, The Deacon, for updates on that. Thank you so much for listening in. I'll be back with another edition of Rector's Corner soon. In the meantime, stay safe and well. And when you're outside, friends, please wear your mask. Take care, everyone.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Be well.